Hello, everyone. Listen, I would like to talk to you today about mental illness. Mental illness is a very, very serious epidemic in our society today, and it has gone undetected. And even now, it has come to a point where it has come to the forefront because it has been the influence of many events that have taken place in our society. Those events contain mass shootings where a person feels like they need to take others' lives and then it ends in a suicide. These are all can be credited to mental illness. I want to persuade you today to take a look at mental illness and take it very seriously. And if there's things in your life that seem to change, there could be a trigger to trigger something that we call mental illness. What is mental illness? Mental illness is a health condition that involves changes in your behavior, changes in one's emotions, changes in one's thinking, or it could be a combination of these things. Mental illness does not discriminate. Does not matter your age, does not matter your gender, does not matter your ethnicity or your income. It can be triggered by many different things. A loss of a loved one, a loss of a job can trigger this change in your thinking or in your emotions. And sometimes if it's not handled properly, it can spin out of control. And the reason why we have to talk about it because many people don't want to talk about mental illness. Many people don't want to admit that they may have depression or they may have a feeling of disconnect. And therefore we need to talk about it. It is a medical condition just like diabetes. It's a medical condition just like high blood pressure. Mental illness is a medical condition. I've dealt with mental illness myself. I dealt with depression and a disconnect. And there were things that it caused it from my childhood that resurfaced as I became an adult. And it began to change my behavior and the way that I thought. And it caused me to go into a deep depression. But thank God, God brought me out. But just like I just said, many people don't want to talk about it. And I didn't want to talk about it. But my speech today is to get us to talk about mental illness. Some of the warning signs of mental illness: withdrawal, feeling disconnected, unusual behavior, odd characteristics and peculiar behavior. I have here some of the percentages of how mental illness affects our society. And it says 1.1 suffer with schizophrenia, 6.7 deal with a major depressive disorder, 26.2 deal with a mental disorder, 2.6 deals with bipolar disorder, 4.1 deals with attention deficit disorder. So this is mental illness that can show up in a person's life. We have to deal with it. So I have to bring it here. As a follower of Christ and as his representative, we are called to follow his example. We are called to reach out to people who are suffering. We are to speak to them and talk to them. And if we observe any kind of different behavior or odd behavior, we are to talk with them and we are to communicate with them. There's a story in the Bible that I want to talk to you about as I conclude. There was a woman with the issue of blood. And this woman, she had spent all of her money on physicians to get healed. And nothing helped. This woman was ostracized from her home and from society. She was bleeding, and so she had to yell, "Unclean, unclean, unclean," from wherever she was. She touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and Jesus made this statement. He said, "Your faith made you whole." And that's the word, wholeness. Sometimes we could be healed physically and not healed mentally. What mental illness is a mental condition. And just like Jesus, he wants us to be made whole. He wants us to be holistic people. People who are not only healed physically, but healed mentally and emotionally. So, as I conclude, take mental illness seriously. If you see some kind of odd behavior in an individual or in yourself, don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to reach out your hand to a suffering individual, because you can bring that person from brokenness to wholeness. Thank you.